So before I go to the next one, I would like to thank Northwestern Polytechnic University for this opportunity, because they are the people who gave me the time and space and tools and staff for this presentation, and they're very helpful in this one. And I'm planning to do a series of talk here at Northwestern Polytechnic University, and I'll show you the list in a second here, which is the one that will take you to the next part here. Stop the video here so we can have more bandwidth. Okay, so this one is the list, and I apologize for jumping around here. The system is not helping. So this is the list that I'm anticipating for the coming 3 months. What's going to happen is we are doing this month 2 events, the webinar, and then I'm going to do on-campus seminar about the hot technologies in 2019 and beyond. And then in May, we're going to have a seminar on campus about a very specific applications with the blockchain. After that one, in June, I'm going to have the hands-on workshop, which is 5 hours from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. It's going to be on campus. The key thing here is I will share this information with you. I'm going to send you a copy of this slide so you know exactly what is coming, so you're aware of the next presentation. This is just a little bit of information about myself. I'm not going to spend that much time on this because we need to move on with the process. My interest is basically in IoT and blockchain and cybersecurity and AI. And my focus lately was on the blockchain technologies and how the blockchain technology is really changing the world and adding more of the challenges, and at the top of that one, adding more of the process of making things more secure. And it's going to be clear in a second here. Just a little bit slow in switching. One more time. Okay, this is my philosophy when it comes to teaching anything. I always look at it, if I cannot explain it very simply to you, then I don't understand it. So for me, when I look at the blockchain, it is a challenge for anybody to make sure that he or she explain it in few words, so the other party, whether they are technical or not, will understand it. It's the thing about it, it's a new technology, and it's not a straightforward one. You have to talk about 2 parts when you're talking about the blockchain. And this is why it is really important to understand the inside of this of this technology. Okay, so let me use this. This will be much better because it's not, the full screen is not working. The blockchain itself is part of the hot trends in 2019, and this will be the subject of the coming seminar at the end of April. I'm going to talk about the Internet of Things, and talk a little bit also about the blockchain and artificial intelligence and cybersecurity, and how they interact with each other, and how they are really going through the process of, shaping our life in many sense. When you talk about the Internet of Things, what does that mean? When you talk about blockchain, also what does that mean, and how artificial intelligence is going in between and helping everybody in the process. One simple way for me to explain it and to make sure that it's really clear to everybody is to go one simple, and somebody tried to share the information. I cannot give you that just because I'm doing this. So the best thing we can do is just watch the screen and listen to the audio. And if you have any questions, I can go through the chat here. So let me focus on this, because this is going to be very important for us to continue this with some kind of a speed here. A very simple way of explaining the IBAC, the four elements here are the IoT fields, what you're doing as a customer, and blockchain will remember it as a customer, or as somebody who is part of the network, and AI will things, and cybersecurity will protect. All started here, which is my research. The first paper I published about IoT was secure model of IoT with blockchain. And the whole story about it is MIT Technology Review looking for somebody to help them explain the relationship between the Internet of Things and blockchain, and the use of blockchain in security. And I sent them this paper, and they published it, and that was in 2017. And since 2017, the whole process of understanding what is the blockchain technology and how it's going to be used in IoT was actually a subject of my book too. I published a book in November last year, Secure and Smart IoT using blockchain and AI. Even in a place like New York, if you've ever been in New York, and I lived in that in that part of the United States many years. You're talking about NASDAQ themselves. What they're doing is they have this big sign about blockchain and how blockchain is helping with the transaction. The only thing that I disagree with this picture is the facts about it is faster. It's not faster yet, and you're going to see this one clear when we proceed. So if we compare the blockchain in general technology to the internet, you're going to find that internet is all about connectivity. Blockchain is all about trust. How can I trust the information that you show it to me in the block, or that document, or that ledger? This is the building block for the blockchain, and the whole concept of the blockchain built of why I should trust this information compared to something else. But what is blockchain? Blockchain itself, in a very simple definition, is, if you look this one in Wikipedia, you're going to see it, and it's still confusing. You talk about open distributed, transactions, two parties, efficiently, you verify it, permanent ways, and I don't like that definition. And I always use the definition given by Dr. Abel Sanchez from MIT. It's really a fantastic definition of blockchain, which is the best definition for it. Is it's actually a combination of two things: cryptography and human logic. Cryptography, we know about it. It's not new. I mean, cryptography is, everybody who's working in network security, he or she understand what is cryptography. They know about it. Security expert, they know about this. So this is what is existing now. Now, the new thing added to this one is the human logic, and the human logic can be translated into the consensus protocols. When you have many nodes, they have to agree on the validity of the information with a certain way of consensus. Then we're talking about the human logic. One of the things about the blockchain itself, it's making it so difficult for people to hack or to get into this buy, because of the time consuming and the power consuming here. Now let's put it together. When we put it together, this is what's going to happen. When you put everything together, this is the case what happened. And I'm going to give you a few seconds to look at it and see what does that mean. This one is very important to understand. Why? Because it's talking about what is blockchain. It's a distributed ledger shared by participant, and I highlighted the points of the main things. Which this is a translation of the previous slide. You're talking about the case of cryptography and human logic. Every piece of information is secure and encrypted using the public, key cryptography, and also you're talking about the private key concept. Each participant has a copy, on their computer, and also the information cannot be added. Cannot be removed, or the information cannot be removed or overwritten, but you can add information. And this is the assurance of the no alteration for the information. The other one is talking about the consensus protocol, which is the human logic here to validate any block. And at the top of that, you're talking about the smart contract and how the smart contracts are helping. The 5 components of the blockchain, generally speaking, is the cryptography algorithm, having a peer-to-peer network and the consensus mechanism, and the ledger and the validity rules we are using, like the smart contracts. A quick run over, if somebody never heard about the encryption, it's known as the hash function. You take a word like Fox and you encrypt it, and this is the information you get. You take a sentence, you take a paragraph, you're gonna use the hash function, and this is the information you get on the other side. And this is why it is you need the private key, you need the public key to decrypt this one so you can get that information back. And the structure of the blockchain itself is similar to this. The most important thing about it, and I encourage you to think a little bit about it and compare this one to the 5 components we talk about, or elements of the blockchain. You're going to see the timestamp, you're going to see the previous hash, you're going to see the hash, you see the data. Whatever in the next block is the hash of the previous one. So if you alter one of them, the consequent ones will be altered, and it's going to be very hard for you to to continue. Why? Because they're going to realize that the information is not the same. This is an example of a block programming, and if you will see the keywords we talk about them, the timestamp, the transaction, the hashes, the nonce we're talking about, the index for this one. So it's a simple programming. If you know one of the famous or more of the famous programming languages, you can use it in programming the platform. And the other one is the smart contract is also a simple programming, and Solidity is the basic programming language for that. It's not hard to learn. It is really it's really a nice language, programming language. If you spend some time, there's so many documentations, free documentation, you can use it for that language, for learning that programming language. The next thing is that we cannot proceed in blockchain until we understand the directions or the tracks of blockchain. The tracks are 3 tracks. The first one is the R&D track, and the second one is the immediate business benefit track, and the last one is the long-term transformational potential track. And the pure R&D is what the universities is doing. As simple as that. The immediate business benefit track is what we have now. There's 2 pieces of that. The first one, the businesses would like to know, to understand what is the blockchain technology, and then they go to the next step, which is how can we use it to benefit our business, or to monetize it, or to use it to save cost and make things more secure. The last one is the long-term transformational potential, which is the long-term track. That one is very important. Why? Because this is where the VCs themselves is actually dealing with it, and it is for them as they always think about what will be the next move for them, what will be the next part of that. Very quick information here. Let me see if everything is okay. So I'm just trying to see what's going on with the chat here. Okay, right now. Okay, so questions, or you can start. You type in your questions. You're welcome to do that. And after I finish, then what I'm going to do, that's what I'm going to do. So I have one person who would like to be admitted. Okay. 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 Good. So the different types of blockchain technology, you're talking about private, public, and the third one is confederated or hybrid. And the slides give you more information about it. When you're talking about permissionless, means it's public one. You're talking about permission, you're talking about a private, and it goes with according to the energy, security, and speed and trust level. The bottom one, when we talk about the trust level, public one, generally speaking, is trustless because you don't know who is actually on the other nodes. While when you talk about the private one, it's something like the Hyperledger for IBM. When you set up that one, the nodes are well known that who is actually part of the node, because this is how the companies would like to form that. They form their own universe in this case. Some information and some interesting information about the cryptocurrency and about how it's penetrating the consumer market. 8% American, they actually hold cryptocurrency, and about 3 billion. That's the value of the fees and the trading fees in 2018, and we have about 1,700 Bitcoin ATM machines. So and this is going to take me to the next level, which is when we're talking about, okay, so what does that mean? How is that going to help us? look at the next information here. At the end of 2018, 36 blockchain startup had been acquired, almost third of them here in the Bay Area, in the Silicon Valley. And that's an indication of how much investment we have here in the Silicon Valley when it comes to this process. This one again. Okay, hopefully that's not going to stop it. I'm turning the video again because let's see if it's going to go well. In 2018, the World Economic Forum survey, a respected organization, they say 10% of the global GDP will be stored in blockchain in 2027, 7 years from now. 10%, and that's a huge number. That's not a simple number. So a little background about the technology of the blockchain. The past of the blockchain is the future, our future, is what we have now. If you look at the dates of the technologies, I have them here on the screen. You're going to see that I have 1970, I have 1999. I have 1970s, and all of them is actually old technologies. And the key thing I'm trying to tell everybody here, and whenever I give presentation about the blockchain, that we are actually going back in time and using previous technologies. Even the concept of the cryptocurrency itself, it's not a new concept. I mean, at the dawn of the civilization or the human, you're going to find that they used to have within the tribe itself their own currencies, and it cannot be used outside. We are back to the same concept. I mean, we went through a whole cycle, and then we're going back to square one. We went through the fiat, currencies, international currencies, dollars everywhere accepted, other currencies. Now we say no, it's cryptocurrency and it's accepted with certain communities. And I'm going to talk about Facebook, what Facebook is actually doing with a concept like this, with an app like WhatsApp, and also copying what happened with WeChat, as the famous Chinese messaging and a business. It's an e-commerce application. So good news and bad news. The blockchain developers job is #1 in 2018. This is according to LinkedIn. They have the report by 2018. And it's up by by 33%. The next one is this news about only 3.3% implemented. There's a lot of excitement about it. According to Gartner, they say that only 3.3% of companies worldwide had actually deployed blockchain in product environment, and therefore for many reasons. And I'm gonna share with you guys what happened, and ladies, what happened. If you took any marketing class, you know that the product lifecycle goes through 4 stages: the pioneering or the introduction, then it goes to the growth, and then you go to the maturity and the decline. The blockchain is just starting the growth, and this is a wave we are catching. And I'm talking about 2019 and how 2019 is really the year of the implementations. And it's not just show me or explain it to me. Now I would like, how can I use it in my company? How can I use it to benefit me? Ernst & Young has a very interesting take on the evolution of blockchain, and a well-respected leader in the in that field. They say that in the past 18 months has been moving through explain this to me phase, PowerPoint presentations, conference rooms, into prove it to me. I mean, working conferences room pilots, and that is a key thing to look at it. We moved away from, we would like to know what is this technology only, we moved to the next level, which is prove it to me. Okay, so I know it's good, I know it's great, now how can I use it in my own applications? IEEE, as a leader in looking at the blockchain here, they have their own society and conferences about this, and they try to help people to go from from the pilot to the production stage without failing. There are 4 cases that you look at it. There are 4 cases you look at it, and those cases will help in this process. So the first use case is for guarantee and verify data dissemination. So if you put this one in that category, that will help me going from being a pilot to all the way to go and become a production. Second case is asset and product tracking, important one in supply chain, in pharma, in many of the applications that goes through multiple points, friction points before it can get to the consumers. And asset transfer and the certifying claims, like your certificate, your degree, MIT, and other schools are using this, and I'm going to share with you names some of the companies is actually doing this kind of certifications on the blockchain for the certificate. So you have your digital certificate and you have your paper certificate too. Do you need it? That's a good question, because I remember last week I was giving a presentation to a group of postdoctoral and professors from a well-known German university, and it was the whole thing started for an hour and then extended for 2 hours for questions and answer. The key thing about it is one of the professors there asked me why, why I should even think about it. Do I need it? I mean, the question is a valid question, and I respect that. The answer for something like this one is very simple. It is you don't need it all the time. You need it for certain cases, and you need it for certain configurations. For example, if a traditional database technology can meet your needs, don't bother. Don't waste your time with the blockchain. But if you have a certain questions to answer, does more than one participant need to be able to update the information? If you say yes, then you go to the next level. You say no, just use the traditional database. So the use for the blockchain, it depends on your needs. I mean, one of the misconceptions that, and I'm going to talk about the myths related to the blockchain. One of the misconception is people ask me, how can I use the blockchain in my business? It's the other way around. You have to see what are the problems with the security, tracking, assets, transfer, digital assets you have. And then you say, okay, I understand the blockchain technology. I know exactly what I have. Can I put them together? And this should be the way to look at it when you're trying to understand what is the use of the blockchain. The whole thing started with this person, or I have no idea if this is one person, many persons, even a fake person, have no idea. Satoshi Nakamoto published that one on October 31st in 2008, and that was the beginning of the revolution for the for Bitcoin. If you read his paper, you're not going to get any mention of blockchain. You're going to see everything he's talking about actually the Bitcoin, but the blockchain is the technology, and this is one problem that blockchain is facing. People, when you mention blockchain, the first thing come to their mind is cryptocurrency, and the misperceptions or the problems associated with the Bitcoin. And in that paper, he went through the process of okay, I would like to, and he compared it. What we have now is the centralized network, decentralized, and then distributed. And I always have this example, which is really make it so easy for you to explain blockchain to somebody else. If somebody asks me, can you explain blockchain to a fifth grader? A fifth grader, the term used for somebody who's not technical. And I've been asked that question, by one of my students who was doing his master's degree thesis. And the answer is simple for this question, or to explain it to non-technical people. I'm sitting in a building here, this wonderful building of Northwestern Polytechnic University, and there is let's say there's a security guard standing outside, and he or she will check the IDs when people come in and out, come in the building. Once I'm in, I'm done. This is the centralized one. If you look at this one, you have one point of security, and you're done with that. You have firewalls, and you're in the building, and you're done. You're inside the network, and you're done with that. For the blockchain, is completely different, and we have about 50 people in the building. If each one of them have a list and pictures of the people who are supposed to be in the building, and the same copy, everybody out of the 50, each and every one of them have it. If somebody get in, even if that person managed to convince the security guard it's an emergency, I don't have my ID, can you let me in? I work here, or I need to talk to somebody here, and somehow he or she managed to get in. Once they are inside the building, everybody there, all the nodes, all the 50 will be looking at the list, looking at the picture, and say, well, I don't see him here. And they're going to talk to each other, say, do you see him? No. This kind of synchronization, which is something called the gossip protocol, that syncs the information among the different nodes, is the human logic. We talk about it when we talk about the blockchain definition. We're talking about the first one, which is the cryptography, which could be that list could be encrypted in a way only the nodes can read it, or people who are really creating those forms or the list understand it. But at the top of this one, you add the most challenging part, which is the consensus. So if enough, if out of the 50 you have 5 or 6 people say, no, we don't see him or her on the list, then that person will be kicked out of the building. And this is how you can explain it by saying it's a distributed network. That's a very important feature of the blockchain. And the blockchain itself went through history, and it's not new. Again, it's not new. Even I'm not talking about the technology. I'm talking about the whole idea of a distributed computing. It's in the 90s. I worked on this one, and I was doing my graduate study, and then it's just progress until we have Satoshi Nakamoto started published his paper, and then all the way until we have the introduction of the smart contracts. In the 2016, 2017, we're talking about the market, consolidations and development. Now in the 2018, 2019, we're talking about applications. An application is not just the case of the distributed application, the dApps. It's more than that. It's what is the application of such, technology in my own company. Opportunities. This slide is really an interesting slide in the sense of, I look at it and say, okay, every single item in this slide is an opportunity for somebody to build something, whether it's a user experience, to have it at the top of the desktop and the smartphones or the tablets, all the points, the customer contact points, application layer, talking about the smart contract, decentralized, application, and the blockchain protocols, a very interesting topic for so many of the research, distributed ledger, consensus protocols. All of these things are part of the challenge, the node, the mining, and how can you put it at the top of the internet. The important thing about it is we look at these opportunities, and each one of them is a chance for a startup. Now, we cannot talk about blockchain without talking about proof of work or proof of stake as the most famous consensus protocols used now. Proof of work is the one that's used with Bitcoin, and proof of stake is the one that Ethereum is trying to move to. And the difference between them is simple. I'm not going to spend too much time this one because I want to jump into the myths and the applications before the time of the webinar is done. Proof of work is you have to solve a mathematical problem. They give it to you, you have to solve it. If you solve it, and it's not easy, and I gave a demo about this one in many of my presentations, you have to get a certain string of hash with 3 or 4 zeros in front of it. And for the blockchain, we're using SHA-256 or the SHA-256. And if you try to get zeros at the leading zeros, it's not an easy thing, especially if I didn't give you the starting point. If you solve that one, you need a lot of graphical processing units. You need a lot of processing power, so you can get to that. To try the different combinations, using the linear algebra concepts. Proof of stake is a different way of looking at it because they save on the energy by saying we're going to look at who will be impacted by anything goes wrong in the network and in the blockchain network. And that person has a high stake in that, so we're gonna tell that person to create the first block. For example, somebody who have an investment of huge number of Ethereum in that, or in the network, then that person will have there will be a witness group. This is witness group is you select certain nodes that you call them witness. Those people will select somebody and say we'd like you to start that. Or somebody who's very active on the blockchain network, and that person has a high stake in the network, and that person will start the process of building the first node. The proof of X is the key thing for a lot of research going on in the universities. The concept of it is really interesting because there's no limitations, nothing. No limitation of whatsoever that you can have as a proof of X. For example, you can have something called delegated proof of stake. You can have something called proof of authority, proof of assignment, proof of view. I'm going to talk about proof of view, or proof of you name it, based on the situation. What kind of proof that I am here giving this webinar to the people who are listening and watching this? You can have somebody who is sampling the video, and you can have my phone, for example. I have my phone, and somebody can pinpoint to the GPS location of the phone, or there is a camera here and a video, and I can have all these conditions by saying, if we can satisfy those 4 or 5 conditions, that's proof that Professor Banafa is giving that webinar, or now we know that he's there. And this is what's going to trigger your imagination. And this is the challenge I give it to all my students. Find your proof of X for whatever application you are dealing with. Soft fork and hard fork is one way for us to try to solve the problem of not changing the whatever inside the block by saying, okay, for example, the soft fork is if we change the size of the block, then until you change that size and you cannot submit anything and be part of the blockchain. That is the soft fork. The hard one is the same case happened with something like the situation of the Ethereum Classic and the Ethereum network. They are two now. Why they took a hard fork? Because a situation of a $50 million taken from the Classic Ethereum network, and before they named them Classic Ethereum network. And it's a long story, but the short version of it is there was a problem with the smart contract that never checked the balance. So a node there figure out this, and they start depleting the money. I mean, the 50 million is still sitting in an account. Nobody can touch it. It's like you go to the ATM and you start taking money because the machine is not checking your balance. So you can take whatever money you want, in that bank. Some of the myths here, and this is the interesting part of the webinar. Number one is smart contract have the same legal values as regular contract. Not yet, not yet. There is a special alteration to the smart contract, not in the code, but at the top of it, something called Ricardian contract. It's a plain text contract written by attorneys, lawyers, you name it, somebody on the legal field where you can sign it. It's a human, reading documents. You can read it. It's not a code. So you can put it at the top of this one, and that will add some kind of a legal, confirmation for this. But smart contract is a software, and I just mentioned the case of the DAO. DAO is the organization that built to have some kind of a distributed, autonomous organization where anything in the company should be done by voting. So if I'm doing business with somebody else, I don't have to get the approval from the CEO or the vice. We don't have CEO or vice president. We have employees, and they have to vote on we're going to do business with this company or not. 67% has to vote yes for you to approve that. It was a novel idea, but the $50 million theft, slowed down the whole process. Blockchain is designed for business interaction. No, that's not true. It's actually for more than the business interactions. It's designed for so many things. Let me admit another person here. And blockchain is Bitcoin. It's not Bitcoin. Bitcoin is just one of the applications of blockchains. Using the blockchain at the top of using the Bitcoin at the top of blockchain. Blockchain can only be used in the financial sector. It's not. It's actually used in many sectors: supply chain, pharma, advertisement, marketing, educations. Many of the sectors. Blockchain record can never be hacked. It actually can be hacked, and with something called the 51% attack. I'll talk about it. And you remember the example I gave you about the 50 people in the building, and they have to approve the person getting into the building. If I manage to convince, let's say that 26 of them, 27 of them, and told them, no, I'm supposed to be here. Can you change your, add me to the bottom of the list? If I can convince them, then I am in, because the majority is saying I'm okay. The blockchain can be used for anything and everything. That's not true. I just showed you the diagram. If the database can help you, doing whatever you want, then you don't have to go through the cost and the headaches and the trouble of having the blockchain. There is only one blockchain. Now we have many companies. We have many formats of blockchain. You have private, you have public, you have federated, you have hybrid, and you have something like the Bitcoin. You have something like the Ethereum, and a hybrid ledger for IBM. You have Microsoft having blockchain as a service. You have Amazon providing this kind of services, and it's not free. Whether it is skills, powers, you can program it, but once you deploy it, it's a long process. Blockchain is going to change the world. No, it's not going to change the world. It's going to help the world be more secure. That's the right information. The next slide is talking about let me see, some of the challenges that facing the blockchain. The 51 attack is one important one, which is the consensus mechanism. Private key security, problem, somebody can steal it. And private key, I'm not talking about somebody, just taking that one. I'm talking about people are really not careful about it, because that private key, who has it will take over your account. And lately there was actually a case here in Santa Clara in county here in the Silicon Valley about this student, 22 years old student. He managed to hack into 40 phones, smartphones, and get into the wallet. And then he took all the money, the cryptocurrency from those phones, but using something called SIM swapping. And you can Google that, concept. It's an old problem now. It's coming back because we're talking about cryptocurrency. And he managed to get about $5 million worth of cryptocurrency. But he caught because he started spending like crazy, and they found out about him. And it's a long story, but it's really fascinating to see how the cryptocurrency is rehashing new old problems we have with the crime and criminal activities, cryptocurrency applications, and using the cryptocurrency as human trafficking, using this one for money laundering, using it for all the criminal activities. That's some of the misconceptions and risks. Double spending is a fascinating concept of if I give you, if I want to buy something from you and it's $1, I give you the dollar, I'm done. But if I can make copy of the same dollar and then buy from you and then use the same dollar with the same serial number and use for somebody else, that's double spending. Sometimes the processing of my transaction will take time. So 2 transactions will happen with few differences, and I will get double what I am what I'm supposed to get. Using the same payment, and you get by mistake they give you twice whatever you're supposed to get. That is example of the double spending. Privacy leak, like the transaction design flaw, it's back to it's a software programming, it's a code. Smart contract applications, we're talking about criminal smart contract, what we talk about the DAO problem, and also you're talking about flaws in the programming, and the same thing with the smart contract. And I'll share with you the story, which is a well-known story about this millionaire business person in Canada. Is $107 million in his account as we speak, and belongs to his customers, and nobody can get it. Why? Because it's in a cryptocurrency format. And he died, and he's the only one who knows how to get it out. Nobody can now get into the account and get the 107 million. It's sitting there. Nobody can do that. Now with the smart contract, if we have a smart contract, we can do some kind of programming. Well, if this person did not check the account for 3 months, 6 months, then the information about the account will be sent to somebody else. If the GPS of the phone of this, of this businessman is not in the office for 3 weeks in a row, then what's going to happen is the information about how to access the account will be sent to 5 or 6 people, and those people will, they are trusted people. You can send it to, some kind of, a person who will take care of it if something happened to you. That's one big problem with the looking at the human logic here. More challenges. Scalability is a problem, and I've seen this a lot. When I'm talking about scalability, I mean, the case of IBM is really trying hard to solve the scalability problem. Big companies, the first thing they look at is how can we deploy this one in our network, like Visa, MasterCard, banks. That's a challenge. Yeah. Processing time, I'll show you a table about that. And processing power, if you're using the case of proof of work. And storage, that's not a problem now, but in the future, if you are saving all these, all this information, now what's going to happen in the future? Regulation is another issue here. And regulation is, it's not mature. The whole industry is not mature enough because not many people understand it. Until we get to the stage where we understand that the regulation could help in this one. Now they're afraid that the regulation, countries like China, they banned the cryptocurrency completely. So you're going to find yourself, you are crippled in big markets. The perception about blockchain is Bitcoin is not true. It is Bitcoin is using the technology of blockchain, and an important one, which is the lack of skilled staff. The lack of skilled staff is one of the things that the universities are racing to cover big time. and the problem of first mile and last mile, or the first mile, last mile problem. The first mile is something called the truth machine. The truth machine, if you Google that name, you're going to see what does that mean. Garbage in, garbage out. If you give me the transaction or the data and it's wrong, then the blockchain is not going to correct it for you. It's going to save it. You're going to remember it. So what is wrong there. It's like the same thing with the 50 million situation. It was a mistake in the code, and it's they kept it. And they say, no, you have to add a number line here to make sure that it is correct. And when you receive it at the other end, what's going to happen with it? The last mile problem. Current solutions, things like the list of it. You're talking about the Hyperledger Fabric, which is something done by IBM. The Quorum, which is one between JP Morgan and Ethereum. They try to have something, a private network, so they can compete with the IBM networks. And Ethereum, which is a public one. You're talking about Ripple, which is a private, and talking about R3 Corda, which is, again, it's a permissions, which is a private. And each one of them has its own, attributes or features. One feature I'm really interested in is the transaction per second, the TPS. That is one big thing for the financial institutions, especially if you're talking about processing your credit cards, at different points of sales. You need something which is Visa. They need something like 24,000 transaction per second. It's not even close. We're talking about over 2,000. And then you look at the rest of them, they are 120, 1,500, 170. So there is no attraction here or to the financial consumers, where the transaction has to happen in milliseconds. Applications, and I have 10 minutes to go with that. Applications, two categories. When you think about the use cases for the blockchain, you think about it, there are two categories, and this is actually a good analysis by Wall Street Journal to explain it. Record keeping use cases, and transaction use cases. And if this is in your mind, it's easy for you to look at each one. So this is about record keeping, this is about transaction use. Blockchain and IoT and AI can work together in one ecosystem, and this diagram is showing that one very nicely. You see that the Internet of Things has its 4 stages: the sensors, the network, the IoT platform, and the applications. At every one of the stages, you can see what the blockchain can confirm and save the information. And then you go to the case of the IoT platform, the artificial intelligence can make it smarter and give you the insight, analyze the data, and the same thing goes with the applications. And this is the landscape for the different blockchain solution for the enterprise, between the corporations that the Amazons, the Microsoft, IBM, Alibaba, HP, Tencent, all of them are really in this kind of business. And to the pilots, that supply chain is a big thing. Walmart, we have a case. I'm going to talk about it. The Federal Express, the same thing. Transportation companies. To the startups, it's more than what we have on the screen here. The same thing goes with the protocols used, and the platforms and the consortiums for the different blockchain organization. One example here is the degree at MIT. MIT will give you your digital, blockchain diploma, certified degree on an app, and any employer who is part of that blockchain network can verify if you have this degree from MIT or not. Now, this network, if the employers, they must subscribe to this, so they can get that this kind of access. Okay, I apologize because I keep adding people here. There are 2 more companies, and if you have the time after the webinar, you can check them. Something called CV Trust. It's at the corner here, CV Trust, and Credible. Those are famous companies, and one of them is local and Fresno. Those companies are really good companies when it comes to certifying the digital degree you have. If you took a class online, then if it goes through one of them, there is a process to make sure that you are the person who really did that. Okay, so the other part is this. Walmart, no way to do business with them unless you are part of their network. And IBM is the one who developed that for them, something called IBM Food Trust. And if you look at the picture here, and I encourage you to check this one in the Wall Street Journal, you're going to see you can check the food sequence when it goes to the different stores received, and you can see there's 5 stores here. Store with the store number. You know exactly how that goes from the farm to the to the table. So if we have any problem with food poisoning or some kind of a scare like the lettuce we have 3 or 4 months ago, this is what happened with it. You're going to find yourself really taking this, looking at this app, and you will find out from where exactly this is. This is going to save life, save time. You don't have to shut down the whole pipeline so to know from where this poison is coming. A good example about advertising, it's a fascinating thing because advertising depends on the impressions, clicks, how many viewers, and there's a lot of problems with that. I mean, whatever I agree on this, I have 20,000 views, while the company say no, you only have 15,000. Where we can find the truth here. So using the blockchain can help in this. Like, for the buy side, transparency, blockchain for auditing. So it's everything is registered, and there are multiple copies in multiple nodes, so you cannot modify. The sell side is really the interesting one. This is something called proof of view. And if you look at the 3 points I have here on the screen, proof of view only records views from a signed in user. So you have to have an account signed in so you can watch that video. For example, if you are watching, a certain, advertisement, or how to or some of the YouTubers giving this kind of a presentation, and you make sure that this will get up to the case of a case of 1 million viewers or views. And the other one, that only one video has to be active. You cannot open 4 or 5 windows. The next one is point of view technology confirms that the video is actually being watched by sampling, capturing information by sampling the frames. Like what I talk about when I say how we make sure that Professor Banafa is here and he's given his presentation. And the smart contract, contract to document the views and who gets paid. The supply chain is a very heavy user of the blockchain. This is a very good, startup. I have the pleasure and the honor to meet with them, and they give a presentation in one of my classes. Statwig, what they have done is they look at how can we solve the problem of the rotting fish that's sent from countries like India to Malaysia or to Indonesia or to the Philippines. During that, 40% of the seafood actually spoil when they deliver it. Why? Because of the IoT part of it is not working. The temperature and that's what happened with it. The other one is the doc sign itself, which is the case of it's. If DocuSign, if you look at it, if you use it, is a really fascinating way of going paperless. I use it all the time. So how can we make sure that the information they give it to me through the PDF is the same one that it is saved on their server or sent to the person I signed that paper? So they are using the blockchain as a solution for this. Starbucks is installing something called Brackets payment software in their store, which they're trying to see if you can pay with the crypto. 2 years supply chain pilot utilizing traceability technology. So what they do is they're using the same technology for the supply chain. They use it so they can contribute to the financial independence of the farmers, straight to the farmers instead of the middle person. And Tickets Master is using the blockchain, so nobody will resell or abuse the system by buying tickets and then having some kind of a fake tickets. And if you haven't heard about some of the crazy things lately happened with the Avengers, the Endgame, the new movie coming the end of April, I found that some of the people who bought it, they are selling those tickets for almost $15,000 on eBay. So that's one. So if you buy a ticket, you'll make sure it's really the real ticket. The drugs, the return of the drugs are an important thing, and there is an application done by SAP, and that's called ATTP. It's Advanced Track and Trace for pharma. It's with the collaboration with Merck. If you Google this name of this app, you're gonna find that it's started as a supply chain app, and then they converted to use the blockchain. It's registered the item number based on a certain standard, serial number, batch number, and the expiration date every time it goes from one point to the other, and also knows the geographic location of each one of the items. The same thing with the clinical trials. The clinical trials has a big issue with failure to obtain the written informed consent, unapproved forms, invalid forms, reconsent or revisit, revise protocols, institutions themselves, they're not up to date. So they want to make sure that the FDA, they say 10% of all the trials done without the proper certifications. One of the companies doing this is a company called ExoChain, and I have it at the bottom here. If you have time, please go and check it. It's actually using the blockchain to confirm the consent of the patients and to make sure that they understand that you agree on this one for the next one and this one. It's not like we have it in file and we're done. Who's hiring? Who's actively hiring now? IBM, Oracle, and Ernst & Young. And this is the number of the engineers they're hiring for the blockchain. And also Facebook. Facebook, they are experimenting with something called FaceCoin. And I have no idea if this is something that's gonna come to the public soon. But they're using something called stablecoin. Stablecoin is completely different from the from the normal Bitcoin or Ethereum. This is 1-for-1. So it's gonna use with WhatsApp, in the same fashion that WeChat use for everything in China. So what is next? What is next is, and this is my prediction for this one, is quantum computing. And quantum computing can break the encryption for the current blockchain because of the speed that you can have all the combinations and you can find out that this is the encryption. So how to answer that one? Quantum blockchain, quantum contracts, and quantum proof of X. That could be the answer. One more time, remind you about the upcoming event. And we're done with the one here on the April 6th. And then the 27th, I have a seminar on campus. It's going to talk about hot technologies in 2019. And also in the May 18th, I will have on-campus seminar, 10 blockchain applications in details, business, security, supply chain. I'm going to go in more details about it. And then in June 8th, I will have my workshop on campus, which is hands-on on blockchain.